Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I will be running through my favourite 10 Bruno Fernandes replacements after the news of his injury last night against Aston Villa. Welcome back everyone to another video. Now, normally today would be my transfer plans video ahead of the next game week, but that will take a break for now. I'll be back tomorrow with that, so if you're looking for that, don't worry, that's still coming, and I've got 4 free transfers to use and this man in my team as well, so it will be particularly relevant. But I thought that it'd be important to get this video out today. I've ran through a few of my favourite Bruno Fernandes replacements, and I thought it might be helpful for you to hear my thinking as well. If you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and importantly hit subscribe to the channel, especially if you don't want to miss out on my transfer plans video tomorrow. So a quick update on Bruno first off before we get into my favourite replacements. Unfortunately, the man who never gets injured has finally gotten injured. I think he's missed 2 matches with Man United due to injury since he even signed for the club. So this is a particularly rare occurrence. However, it doesn't look like good news. And actually, I was watching the game live. Bruno Fernandes himself almost looked shocked, almost like he didn't realise what an injury even was when he pulled up on the ball even, not off the ball, in around the 40th minute. He even continued after that, got a shot away, almost scored in fact, and then didn't come back out after half-time. So it appears to be a fairly significant injury. Even though he was walking around after the game pretty much okay, Amorim came out after the match and gave us a couple of key quotes that I just want to run through quickly. So, on the Bruno Fernandes injury, he says, I think he's going to miss some games, not just singular, some games, plural. And previous to that, he said it is a soft tissue injury, so it is going to take a while. So, as far as I'm concerned, Bruno is one of the quickest recoverers of an injury I've ever seen in my life. I think a couple of years ago, there was that famous picture of him in a protective boot, and 2 days later, he was playing in the next match. So, I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to be out for ages, but importantly, during this very busy fixture crunch during the Christmas fixtures, we've got 4 game weeks in the space of something like 13, 14 days. It's going to be pretty unlikely, even if it's a shortish layoff of a couple of weeks, maybe even up to a month, that he's going to be back for any of these matches. And these are the matches that you would really want him for. Newcastle at home, okay, fine. It's an average fixture, not amazing. But after that, Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away. That is exactly why you wanted Bruno Fernandes. And of course, we'll talk about other Man United players in a bit, but it is very unfortunate that it looks very likely he's going to be out for these matches. Of course, wait for more injury news. We might get a press conference, although they are the Boxing Day game. So I would imagine if any team aren't going to give a press conference, it will be them, considering they're not going to do one on Christmas Day. So I don't know how much news we're going to get on him after this. And these quotes don't sound promising. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to prepare for life without him for a little while. He does recover very, very quickly. So who knows? We might get lucky and he might be back in fairly soon. But I think given how quickly these fixtures are coming, I am preparing for a few matches without him. And these 3 fixtures, 19 through to 21, unfortunately, I'm not sure he's going to be available for. So again, feel free to wait for more news. But I think given the quotes and given it's a soft tissue injury and it was a hamstring problem, I should have probably mentioned that earlier on, I think it's going to be unlikely he's going to be available for any of these matches. Okay, so let's get cracking with my favourite replacements for Bruno Fernandes. A lot to get through, so I do apologise if this video is a little bit longer than usual. I should also mention that I'm not including players like Phil Foden or Bukayo Saka, or actually Antoine Semenyo as well in this video. I think I very briefly mentioned Harry Wilson towards the end, but the high ownership players that a lot of us already own, I'm kind of skipping over, and we know that Foden and Saka are very good players and probably pretty decent replacements. If you've got the money for them or you don't have them already, Foden in particular, then I think fair enough, you can look at them as replacements. They're not bad options. I just don't want to waste time on this video because a lot of people already do own them. Let's talk about a player that not many people do own. That is Cunha, obvious replacement for Bruno Fernandes considering he plays in the same team and has those really nice 3 fixtures coming from game week 19 through to game week 21. It is worth noting that after game week 21, they've got 2 really tough fixtures in 22 and 23. So you might want to have a plan to get rid of him after that, given that I think if it was Bruno Fernandes we're talking about, you probably hold him for any fixtures. Cunha, I think it is a little bit more fixture dependent. So it's a fairly short-term move. And in fact, you're probably only going to physically own him for a couple of weeks because the fixtures are also like crinkled up together. They're all compressed into a 14-day turnaround. So it's not for a very long time, but there are some great fixtures in there. And of course, his minutes have been pretty good recently, regardless of Mbeumo, Ahmad or Bruno all being out of the side. Now with all of them out, his minutes have got to be really, really strong. He's going to be one of their most important, if not their most important player. And we've seen that before at Wolves. In a worse team, he was putting up good numbers, got really good rate of returns. And I think the main argument that I'm seeing against Cunha right now is, well, without Ahmad, without Mbeumo, without Bruno, where are they even going to create the chances? How is Cunha even going to get any service whatsoever? Especially in that Newcastle game, it's not an easy game. Is he going to even get any chances? I think given that we've seen him at a pretty poor side before, where it did all revolve around him and he still made the most of it, he was still very effective as an FPL pick. It convinces me enough that he's got that big dog energy about him, that he can take a game by the scruff of the neck, even if the teammates around him aren't doing so, and he can probably go and get the points anyway. The data's not bad either. 0.37 XG per 90 is very, very good for a midfielder, and it's ticking upwards recently. He got off to a fairly poor start, but it's getting better and better week on week. I think he's got 3 attacking returns in a row now, and obviously, without Bruno, without Mbeumo, without Ahmad, the team as a whole are going to be impacted negatively. I think that's fair to say. But Cunha, I do have a feeling that he is that main character sometimes. And I do wonder if without those other players in the side, he has to take that responsibility, take another step up. And it's not like the fixtures are bad either. Newcastle aside, Wolves, his old team, of course, Leeds and then Burnley. You couldn't really ask for much better. Leeds away from home might not be easy, but I think if Man United score any goals in this period, it's pretty likely going to have to come from Cunha. Final note on him as well, because I am pretty bullish on him. He's right up there as one of my favourite replacements. He's also pretty likely to take penalties now. I've seen other people mentioning that Šeško's got a good record. That's absolutely true. And Mount also is known to take a few penalties. But I think if I'm sat in that dressing room and one person's going to stick their hand up and say, you know what, guys, this is me. I'm the guy. I'm going to take them. I think it's going to be Cunha. And that's just an assumption. But I'm fairly confident it will be him on penalties. I could be wrong, but that's how I feel. I think he's one of my favourite replacements, even though all of those players are out. His expected points via Solio, and I would recommend going and checking that out. The link is in the description. Via the market odds, in fact, has actually moved upwards. I recorded a video yesterday with some of the best players to buy with him in it. And I remember putting in on this graphic 5.13, I think it was, or around that for the expected points over the next 5 on average. That's up half a point now because of the Bruno injury. And that will be the penalty share that's increased, I would think, and the goal share as well as part of that team. I'm really bullish on him. I think he's a great option. Man United as a whole will be worse, so I understand why people might not want to go full steam ahead into him, especially with Newcastle first up. You might want to wait a week and see how they do without those other players. But of course, he scored in the previous match with no Bruno involvement anyway, and then got a really good chance in the second half, which he probably should have buried without Bruno there either. So I still think he'll get chances. And Aston Villa are a great side. They're third in the league. They're doing really well. 10 on the bounce wins. And he still put up good XG. He's still got chances. So I really like him. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let's move on to the next guy. Okay, so if you're looking for a midfielder in red hot form right now, look no further than Morgan Rogers. Another brace last night against Man United. 2 fantastic finishes. Absolutely incredible stuff. The XG is really low, 0.14 XG per 90. Although it is worth noting that that is improving week on week at the moment. It is getting better after a very slow start for Aston Villa at the start of the year. That's ticking upwards. So I would bake that into my thinking when looking at these raw numbers. I think raw numbers can tell you so much, but maybe not the full picture when you're looking at trends. And Morgan Rogers is undoubtedly trending upwards. That data's getting better. He's got another brace in the Man United game with 2 excellent finishes. And when I'm really trying to think about it, I can't think of too many finishers in world football that are better than Morgan Rogers right now. So I do wonder, and I haven't checked this out myself, do feel free to go do so. But his XG versus his post-shot XG, I reckon the post-shot XG is going to be a lot higher. That means the quality of chance that he has versus the average player. So let's say 50 players take a shot from outside of the box. I reckon his has got a better chance of going in, or the quality of his shots has a better chance of going in than the average player. So although the XG is low, I think he's much better than that. And it's almost a false narrative to look at this data. Now, obviously, the data does paint a certain picture that is still quite low. So feel free to take that into your thinking as well. But he's got 10 attacking returns, 7 of them are goals already. And the next 5 projection isn't all that bad either, especially considering the fixtures. 3.72 expected points on average over the next 5. It's not great, but when you look at the fixtures, it's almost painting a picture of, well, maybe he could defy the fixtures. Chelsea and Arsenal in the next 2 does put me off, if I'm being completely honest, especially when we're looking at some other players today that have pretty good fixtures in the next few game weeks. But I do wonder, if you have him down as a long-term player to hold on to, if you get ahead of the curve now, buy him before his price skyrockets very soon, and I'm sure it will do even this week. He got a price rise last night, and the ownership increases. It's not like I can't see him returning against Chelsea or Arsenal. He obviously could get points in either of those 2 games. They beat Arsenal in the reverse fixture not too long ago as well. So yeah, he could get points in those games. I suppose I'd be playing the odds and saying if there are any games that he might not return in, those are the 2 most likely for him to not get anything from. Having said that, he could absolutely do so. He's still at a very good price. And as a long-term player to own, he's a 90-minute man week on week. He's taking shots for fun at the moment. And the fixtures do turn a corner after game week 19. So if you want to get on it early, I've got no problem with that whatsoever. Okay, so it's funny how quickly FPL can change sometimes, because 2-3 weeks ago, I did not imagine a universe where I'd even be mentioning Florian Wirtz in a video, but things do change pretty quickly. And now we've got the Bruno injury. We're looking around for midfielders just under the price point of Bruno Fernandes with good fixtures. And Wirtz, weirdly enough, ticks quite a few boxes. Wolves at home, Leeds at home, Fulham away. And then after the Arsenal game, they've got Burnley at home as well. The minutes have been getting better. He's been looking a lot better recently as well. Although the underlying data and maybe the raw output isn't painting a brilliant picture, watching the Liverpool matches, as I do tend to, he's been pretty good recently. Although not putting up excellent data, it does feel like he's on the cusp of becoming more important to them and the way they set up and the returns. I hate predicting things because it always looks stupid in a week or 2. If he blanks against Wolves and Leeds, I'm going to look like an idiot. But I do feel like returns are coming. I do feel like we're on the cusp of him starting to get the output behind the performances as well. The data's not great. 0.34 is that XGI per 90 across the season. But again, a bit like Morgan Rogers, it is starting to skew upwards. The fixtures are there. And if we look at the market projections via Solio, again on screen here, 0.61, a projection of non-penalty XGI per 90 over the next 5 game weeks on average. So we're looking at, so what is that? That's about 3 returns on average over the next 5 game weeks if he plays the minutes. And I can see him playing the minutes. I think he's been much more important to Liverpool recently. And look, I can already see the comments coming in that he's a terrible player. He's been horrible for Liverpool. He's not getting the returns, hasn't even scored a goal in the Premier League so far. But FPL is about finding the next trend. And I do just wonder, even though he's still at 8 million, it's quite expensive. I wonder if he's at a cheaper price than the quality suggests or should be worth. And he's been off to a poor start, but I think he's looked a lot better recently. And I'm tempted to consider him as a Bruno Fernandes replacement because I don't think many people will go there because of what we've already seen. And that's absolutely fair enough. He's been not brilliant across the season so far, but you can't really ask for much better fixtures over the next 5 game weeks. Remember, Burnley included in game week 21 there. And I do just wonder if attacking returns are going to start to flow, especially if you can't get to Ekitike up front as well. That Liverpool coverage in the midfield, especially with Szoboszlai suspended, might be pretty interesting to look at ahead of that Wolves fixture. And Wolves look like as poor a team as I've seen in recent history in the Premier League. And I'm a Southampton fan, so that's really saying a lot. So yeah, I don't hate him as a pick at all. I can completely see why people are going there. I'm a little bit tempted myself, but I do just wonder if it might be forcing it a little bit, considering we haven't seen the attacking returns so far. So if you predict him to start turning a corner, I really like it, but there is risk attached because, look, let's face it, he hasn't returned in the Premier League all that often so far. Okay, so on to player number 4, and I do promise to try and hurry this up. I don't want this to be a 1 hour long video. Declan Rice is also an interesting replacement for Bruno Fernandes, but obviously a caveat applies here that a lot of us do already have an Arsenal triple up. So if that's you, move ahead to the next section another 2 or 3 minutes. That's absolutely fine. If you don't have a triple up, like me, I've got Bukayo Saka and Timber. And about 24 hours ago, I was considering at least removing Saka for Rice just so I can afford the Ekitike move. Now, I wasn't sure I was going to go through with it, but a number of managers did. And I do kind of understand it because Declan Rice has been a very solid, very reliable pick. He's got plenty of routes to points, and the minutes over this Christmas period should be really, really strong. The fixtures are okay. They're not great, especially that Liverpool fixture in game week 21, but there are 3 home fixtures in there, and it's not like any of them are terrible either. Brighton at home, Aston Villa at home will be difficult, of course. Bournemouth away from home is probably okay. Liverpool at home. And the nice thing about Declan Rice is it doesn't really matter the difficulty of the fixture as much as it would do for any other Arsenal pick because he does have the defensive contribution points. And against Liverpool, against Villa, probably even against Bournemouth, I place pretty good odds on him getting the DEFCON because he'll have a lot of defensive work to do. So ball recoveries will be high. I think that he's going to probably get those extra 2 points in the majority of the next 4 games. So not a bad pick whatsoever. The XG and the XA isn't great, but when you also add that into the fact that he does get regular DEFCONs and the fact that he also tends to hit bonus when he gets any attacking return whatsoever, because he's so involved in all of the other little bits that accumulate bonus points, I think he's a pretty good pick. Now, there is a question mark over, would you want double Arsenal midfield if you've got Bukayo Saka already? Fair question. I'm wondering the same thing myself because Gabriel's not that far away from coming back. If you've got Timber or Raya or Hincapié in your defence, Hincapié aside because he'll probably be a sell when Gabriel comes back, but getting across to a double Arsenal defence might not be easy to do if you've got Rice and Saka in there. However, I think he'll just continue to drip feed points. He tends to have a pretty high floor, if maybe a little bit of a low ceiling, but he's on set pieces. He's got a great delivery from set pieces. So even when Gabriel comes back, he probably gets a few more assists as well. He's already got a number of attacking returns. He's got DEFCON as well. I really don't dislike it as a replacement. It feels maybe a little bit on the boring side, but you know what isn't boring? Points. And he scores points. So I do just wonder if maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit by not considering him more strongly. Okay, so moving on to my first proper differential of the video, Kevin Schade at under 1% ownership and at 7 million is also pretty interesting to me. Mainly because of the fixtures, because the next 2 in particular, Bournemouth and Spurs, although they're average on the fixture ticker, I'd have them both down as pretty nice fixtures for Brentford. Now, Brentford themselves haven't been putting up great underlying data, especially recently. Owners of Thiago can probably relate to that. No shots from him in the last couple of game weeks. But Schade, if you are looking at getting rid of Thiago, might be a nice way to still cover off the Brentford attack, considering the fixtures are pretty good for a little while now. Bournemouth at home, Spurs at home, Everton away, not great, but not terrible. Then Sunderland at home after that. That's 3 home fixtures in the next 4. Couple of pretty nice ones in there. Bournemouth especially do leak goals. So I do wonder if Schade can get behind quite a high Bournemouth line. Spurs also are not looking great at the moment at all. So yeah, very differential. A lot of us are jumping off of Thiago. So if you want to almost take that on, because he will still have a fair bit of ownership, but still have that coverage in the Brentford game, in the form of Kevin Schade, I don't mind it at all. Now, this season's data, not great, although it does skew more towards XG, which is always nice for a midfielder. But last season, he was explosive. So he's got it in his locker. I don't mind it for the next few. And if you're looking for a differential and you're not loving some of the more popular options that are being bought, for example, Cunha, Rice, we've talked about Rodgers as well, I wouldn't overlook Schade. I think he's an interesting option. Not bad data. In fact, better than Rodgers, better than Rice, especially on the XG side of it, and probably better fixtures than either of them as well. Don't hate it. Okay, so taking a look at another 7 million alternative, and one replacement you could consider for Bruno is Bruno. So Bruno Guimarães at 7 million saves you a fair bit of money, and you're still getting a 90-minute man, very heavily involved in everything good Newcastle are doing at the moment. And I do wonder if he might be the answer. A lot of people have been selling him recently because of the 4 yellows, which I will admit is a factor, and the fact that he is overperforming on his underlying data quite drastically as well. He's 0.25 XGI per 90, picked up 9 attacking returns. So he's basically picked up double the attacking returns than you would have expected him to so far this season. So massive overperformance, obviously scored a goal from a corner directly as well. So that will obviously be massive overperformance as well. But the fixtures coming up are really good for Newcastle. And we're about to talk about another Newcastle asset. But Bruno G, his minutes are not quite perfect because we've seen him be rested before, but they're much stronger than most of the other Newcastle alternatives that I could recommend. And he does have different routes to points. He's on the set pieces. Open play, not terrible. And if you can look past the 4 yellow cards thing, I think the fixtures coming up are really, really strong. So I can see him consistently getting decent points. He's pretty good on the bonus. When he gets any attacking returns, he's usually up there on the bonus points as well. So powerful on the attacking returns as well. They're usually worth an extra point or two. Man United away, we've already talked about the amount of injuries that Man United have, and they're leaky at the best of times. Burnley away after that as well. Great fixture. Crystal Palace at home. Leeds at home. Not a bad little run at all. The one thing I would say is, of course, he's on 4 yellows. That resets after game week 19. So there is a universe where he gets a yellow against Man United and misses the best game of the lot against Burnley. And that would be a nightmare. So if you go for him, there is risk attached. But you would think that he's smart enough to try and avoid the yellow card against Man United. Obviously, it's not always avoidable, but he's not going to go into tackles quite as hard, you would think, as long as he doesn't want the Christmas break off. You would think that he's got that football intelligence to maybe avoid that, considering that the Burnley game, they're going to want 3 points. If there was ever a time to rest him, it probably would be that game. But I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. So there is risk attached. It's a nightmare if he misses the Burnley game because of suspension. But the fixtures over the next 4 are great, and the Man United fixture's not exactly bad either, so not an option I dislike whatsoever. Okay, so I mentioned I'd be talking about another Newcastle player. That player is, of course, Anthony Gordon, and I think if we run through the pros first, it almost seems too obvious, too easy as a Bruno replacement. 7.3 million, so you save a lot of money. He's ultra differential at under 3% ownership. His XG per 90 is crazy good for a midfielder, 0.51, and very good assist threat as well. 0.22 is higher than most of the midfielders we're talking about today. So it's all looking really rosy, especially when you consider the fixtures I just spoke about earlier on as well. Man United, Burnley, Crystal Palace, Leeds. It's brilliant. So what's the catch? Well, unfortunately, the catch is I can't really guarantee that he's going to start all of those matches. His minutes have been reduced in this season. Barnes has been playing fairly well. And even in matches where he's playing well, he's still getting brought off early. I think he played 70 odd in game week 17 after picking up 2 assists. So there's just a lot of risk there that he'll miss a really nice game in the middle there somewhere. Maybe it's Burnley, maybe it's Leeds. It could be any of them. He might play all of them, but just get brought off early in a few of them. That's possible as well. So I'm not ruling him out, but he's not the kind of pick that I ever feel that confident on during this period of the season. I think if we were later on, I'd probably accept that he gets 70 odd minutes a match, gets brought off a little early in most of them, but the data's good enough. He's on penalties as well when he's on the pitch. I probably should have mentioned, I can't remember if I did, but he's on penalties. Of course, that's a massive benefit for him. So it's all really, really good when he's playing. I just don't know how many minutes we're going to get out of him during this period. I do worry that we'll get one benching in there maybe, or if not, we might get a few matches in a row where he's getting 60 or 70 minutes because he's got a great replacement waiting in the wings, literally in the wings, in Harvey Barnes, of course. So I do just worry about his stability as a pick during this period of the season. But the risk I've spoken about, the upside is undoubtedly there. So if you're a manager that doesn't really mind about taking that risk, and there's definite upside there, I think it could be worth it. And it's not a player that I'm completely ruling out either because the data is so good. The penalties are there. He's ultra differential. I don't know if I'm just going to miss out on it by being a little bit too risk averse. Maybe it's worth taking the risk on this one. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Okay, so let's take a look at another big differential as a Bruno Fernandes replacement. And in fact, the biggest differential I'm going to look at today at 0.3% ownership, that is Yeremy Pino at Crystal Palace. Now, it's a bit of a weird one, I admit. I don't imagine too many managers are going to be looking at him as a Bruno Fernandes replacement. But at 5.8 million, saves you a lot of money that you can use to upgrade players elsewhere. So I think there are advantages to this. And at this price, because you can use the money elsewhere to bolster your 15, I think he's rotatable. So that Newcastle game, maybe even the Aston Villa game as well, in game weeks 20 and 21, you might not need to start him. Now, I think before that, he's got two very reasonable fixtures against Spurs at home and Fulham at home. I don't think that they're bad at all, both at home as well for Crystal Palace. They've got a good home record. And when you look at the underlying attacking data, I think he might be a bit of a sleeper pick that might be about to explode. You look at 0.25 XG per 90 and 0.24 XA per 90, tallied together, you're looking at an expected attack and return in around 50% of the matches. Now, the minutes previously were maybe on the iffy side, but they're looking a lot stronger recently, especially with Ismaila Sarr away at the African Cup of Nations. I think his minutes are pretty secure. And watching Crystal Palace over the last few game weeks, I think he's looked really, really impressive as well. So again, I talk about it quite a lot. FPL is a game of trying to find the next player who's going to go on a bit of a tear. It's a risk because he hasn't done so yet, but I like what I see on the eye. The data's looking pretty strong as well. And I just wonder if we're about to turn a corner and he's about to start getting the attacking returns here. So differential, very, very cheap as well for what he offers and good minutes in a good team as well, who do score goals. I wouldn't overlook Yeremy Pino either, and I'm considering him in a bit of a formation switch myself. Okay, so on to player number 9 out of 10, I think it is. I'm kind of losing track with all of these players, but let's have a word on Jack Grealish, who earlier on in the season was a hot topic, obviously picked up those 4 assists across 2 game weeks, and everyone was buying him, everyone was really into him, but he has tailed off since then. So this, again, would be a little bit of an instinctive pick, especially considering the fixtures coming. Burnley away, Forest away, Brentford home, Wolves at home. It's a good batch of fixtures. Everton are a team that have been pretty strong. They are missing a lot of their attacking players at the moment. Dewsbury Hall's out and Dye's away at the African Cup of Nations as well, of course. So there is risk attached here. He's much more heavily reliant on the assists, and you've got players like Barry up top and Beto as an alternative who don't bury their chances all that often. So he might be a bit of a frustrating one to own if you do go there, but he's cheap enough to consider. The data's not bad, and we know the quality of the player is very high as well. And I do wonder, with those absentees in the Everton 11, whether or not he's going to start cutting inside a bit more centrally, like we saw at Aston Villa, and start to take the game by the scruff of the neck. I talked about it with Cunha earlier on in the video, but he's another player that's got that main character energy that I wonder, with the other players missing out, is he going to take that step up and start scoring the goals or start taking more shots with the opportunity of scoring more goals? The fixtures are also there as well. You've got Burnley in there, you've got Wolves in there, Brentford at home is not bad either. It's a risky one because he's not really done much recently whatsoever, and not many managers are going to be buying him this week. But I don't hate him as a bit of a differential pick. And although he's 10% owned, a lot of those teams won't be active right now and they're down at the bottom ranks. There aren't many managers I know in the top couple of million who own Jack Grealish right now. So actually, I'd have him down as another big, big differential if you fancied him to do well with the fixtures. And it is very fixture dependent, this one. But again, don't rule him out. Okay, so let's wrap up the top 10 by taking a look at a player that is actually more expensive than Bruno Fernandes. So a number of you might not be able able to do this. And a number of you might just not be interested in doing it. And that is absolutely fair enough. Feel free to skip ahead to the next section, put a little bonus section in at the end for you. But at 10.4 million, Palmer has not been good value for money this season. He's had significant time off due to injury. And he's definitely still managing something where, okay, he might be fit now, but they're building him back up. So the minutes aren't excellent, but they are getting better week on week. He's started, I think, the last 3 Premier League games now, got attacking returns in a couple of those. And each week, the minutes have been building. So I don't think we're that far away from seeing Cole Palmer back to near his best. And although the data so far this season isn't great, I think that is about to improve quite drastically if we see the minutes improve as well. Chelsea are a team that are performing fairly well as well. Obviously, they've had their blips, but Cole Palmer back in the side will help them. And although we haven't seen it this season, we all remember what he's capable of. So I just wanted to mention him as a player to consider as a Bruno Fernandes replacement, because he's got such attacking upside. He's got such potential for big, big hauls that it would be a bit ignorant of me not to at least consider him or to mention him to you guys, because as long as he's in the game and as long as he's playing football, he should be an option. He should be someone we look at. I don't love the next few fixtures. Villa, Bournemouth, City, Fulham. It's again, not terrible, but I don't know whether it's enough for me to be picking him myself, considering his minutes are still maybe a bit shaky, especially during this Christmas fixture crunch. He'll probably get the odd benching or maybe miss a few minutes, but the upside's there. So I probably wouldn't do this one myself, truth be told, but there's potential for big hauls there. And if you're a risk-taking manager and you fancy him to start getting back to his best very, very soon, then absolutely, be my guest, go for it, because the upside is there. There's potential for big, big hauls there. I just don't know if I've quite seen enough yet to be confident that his minutes are going to be good enough during this period to make him good value for money myself. But that's just me. Okay, so I kind of lied at the start of the video. I think I mentioned my top 10 replacements for Bruno Fernandes, but I'm also going to add in a few cheaper options I didn't have time to talk about in full. And again, I don't want this video to be an hour long, so apologies. I don't know how much the edit's going to be, but hopefully not too much longer. I just wanted to chuck in a few other cheaper alternatives if you're looking at downgrading the position and maybe going with a different shape, a different structure, so a 3-4-3 or a 4-4-2, and having a cheaper midfielder as a fourth or a fifth option. So not all of the options. You could also look at Potts at West Ham as well. Again, I think 4.4 million, but a few I like. Mason Mount will be interesting because I think the minutes are going to have to be pretty good as long as he stays fit. I've also been pretty impressed with him recently in a Man United shirt. I think it took him a while to get going. Obviously, injuries really set him back in his Man United career, at least. But he's been much better recently, and I do wonder if at 5.9 million, he could be an interesting, cheaper option, especially considering there's going to be a lot more emphasis on him taking a step up and needing to take responsibility with so many other absentees. So an option I would consider. Paqueta as well at West Ham. Another option on penalties. The minutes not bad at all and decent fixtures. We've talked about Jarrod Bowen recently as well. I could see him as a decent alternative, although I'm not sure I've seen quite enough out of him recently from open play to jump on him confidently and say he's going to be a great pick. Again, at 5.9 million, it's fine, but I don't know if it really excites me. And I mentioned Jeremy Pino earlier on in the video. I think he's 5.8. I'll have to scroll back to remember that. But around the same price, I think I'd go Jeremy Pino over him personally. But he's got penalties, he's got good minutes, not bad underlying data. So again, a decent replacement with good fixtures. Harry Wilson's another one. I don't currently own him. A lot of you do. I think he's got something like 40% effective ownership at my rank. So again, feel free to skip forward. But if you don't own him already, he's someone that I'd at least consider. After West Ham, the fixtures do run out a little bit. So maybe not a long-term hold or a long-term player to be relying on week. But as a fifth midfielder, if you don't need to start him every single week, and given he's got a good fixture first up, an alternative I would at least consider. And then, of course, you've got Miley, who's been getting better minutes for Newcastle recently. And, of course, with Newcastle's injuries, he's been coming into the side much more often. I don't know if this is a long-term player that's going to continuously get great minutes, but at 4.4 million, he's the perfect fifth midfielder that you can just have on the bench most weeks. So again, it'd be a restructuring from Bruno Fernandes, but it frees up a lot of money, and you could maybe go with 3 strong players up front. So Haaland, maybe Ekitike, maybe Bowen, for instance, as a 3, by downgrading that position altogether. So another alternative I would consider. But there are others I definitely haven't had time to mention in this video. I'm sure there are plenty that you're considering that I haven't mentioned. If there are, let me know in the comments below which ones that I've missed out on, and we can have a chat about it in the comments. And of course, if I have mentioned the player that you're considering, let me know which your favorite is in the comments below as well, and we can have a chat about it if you want. In the meantime, feel free to leave a like if you've enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more from me over the coming days and weeks, and of course I'll see you next time, tomorrow in fact, as we take a look at my personal transfer plans ahead of game week 18.